Welcome to the Effortless English Show with the world's #1 English teacher, AJ Hoge, where AJ's more than 40 million students worldwide finally learn English once and for all, without the boring textbooks, classrooms, and grammar drills. Here's AJ with a quick piece to help you learn to speak fluent English effortlessly.
I'm AJ Hoge, the author of Effortless English. Learn to speak English like a native. Join my VIP program at effortlessenglishclub.com, effortlessenglishclub.com. Speak English powerfully, speak English fluently, speak English effortlessly, think in English. You know what to do. You got to join and you have to commit at effortlessenglishclub.com. Go today, go now to effortlessenglishclub.com. Got a story for you today. A story. A Taoist story, in fact. It's a famous Taoist story. Quite a famous one. Story about a butcher. And a king. I think it's a king. Basically, there's a king or a guy, I can't remember. I think it's a king walking through a market. Right, with his men. He's walking through the market and he sees a butcher in the market. And the butcher cuts meat, right? Cuts up animals for eating. And the butcher is working very, very fast. He's cutting, chopping up these animals, chop, cutting through the meat, and it looks completely effortless. Super, super, super fast and effortless. So fast, so effortless, the king is amazed. He's, whoa, wow. And so he walks over there to watch this guy working, the butcher. And he's amazed. It's just incredible. This guy's so good. And when the guy stops working, the king says, wow, how do you do that? How are you so good? And the butcher tells a little story. The butcher says that when he first started being a butcher, he would use his muscles, right? He would just try to chop through, cut through the bone, cut through the meat with his power. And it was hard work, very tough. Then after many years, he got better. He learned to cut at the joints, right, in the areas between the bones. And his work got easier. But now, the butcher has learned to cut where there is only space, to find the space between the bones, between the tissue, between the muscle, the meat, so that mostly he's cutting through air. He cuts where there is nothing, and therefore, it's effortless. It is easy. Because there is no resistance to his knife. In fact, he's so good now, he says, I never need to sharpen my knife. I never sharpen my knife now. Like 10 years, 20 years, I have never sharpened my knife. My knife is still sharp after all of these years. And the king is super amazed and impressed. Why? Why is the king so impressed? Because, of course, this is not just a story about a butcher and meat. The king realizes this is a lesson in Taoism. He realizes the butcher is a Taoist master. Taoist, Taoist, but spelling it with a T in English. A couple things make this story quite impressive and powerful, meaningful. Number one, the fact this is a butcher is actually important because in Taoism, and especially in Buddhism, of that time period, a butcher was really looked at as kind of a low status position, job, career. very, very low, right? That cutting up animals was seen as, some people probably still think this, see it as a very, kind of nasty job, not a good job, not a nice job, working with dead animals and blood and cutting things up, and it's just yuck. So this is very much part of Taoism, is that this idea of it's a butcher, super low status, giving a lesson to a king, super high status. That's meaningful, that's significant, because the Taoists very much had this idea that the low and the common was important, that much wisdom and truth could be found in the low and the common, in the simple. The butcher's simple. The king is a big, powerful man, but it's the butcher giving the king a lesson. So that's important in the story. The other key part of this story is this idea of Wu Wei. That's my American pronunciation of a Chinese word. But it's the idea of effortless effort. That the butcher has learned to become a master by cutting where there is no resistance. Cutting where there is no resistance. He puts his knife where there is no resistance. And so it is effortless. What this means, of course, the bigger meaning, the reason the king is impressed, he understands the meaning of this, what the butcher's saying, because what he's saying is that in life, do not fight against nature. Do not fight against reality. That the more you go with it instead of fighting against it, the easier your life becomes, the happier your life becomes, the better your life becomes, the more success you get with less effort, more easily. This is right at the heart of this Taoist idea. And the butcher is a symbol of this. Often we have this idea when we have a problem, have a challenge, or we have a goal. I think we're often trained to think to just try harder, especially if you fail or you make a mistake. Just try harder, more effort. Fight more. Now that's not a bad thing. I mean, often we do need that. Often we do need to fight harder. Often we do need more effort. Maybe we're being a little lazy and we need to try harder. Sometimes that is the answer, but it's only one answer and it's only part of the answer. And the Taoist will say that often that's not the answer at all. Often the problem is not effort. Often the problem is you're using your effort in the wrong way. You're using your effort against nature. That's why you're failing. That's why you're not happy. It's not the effort that's the problem. It's how you're using the effort. It's what you're doing. And when the Taoists talk about nature, they're talking about two kinds of nature. In English, we use the word nature. The Taoist would say the Tao, right? To live in harmony with the Tao, to work in harmony with the Tao. Another word you could use would be Dharma. Right? Work in harmony with the Dharma, live in harmony with the Dharma. But the most common, just plain English word here would be nature. And nature has two ideas here. One is human nature, your nature, that's internal. It's inside you, that's your character. We've been talking about this all this week, your character. Now here we're talking about your nature, your nature, your true nature. We're talking about, partly your genetics, partly, your spirit or something you're born with, and also what you have developed deep inside of you. All that together, we could call your nature, your character, your deepest character. So work in harmony with your nature, not against yourself. And also nature here can also mean external nature, right? With the most common thing we think of when we hear the word nature, we think of like trees and mountains and the sky, and it's basically the external nature, right? The natural world. The natural world is nature. And this story is talking about both. When the Taoists talk about living in harmony with nature, or going with nature, they're talking about both outside nature and your own nature. And that most of the problems we have in life, create in life, the unhappiness we create in life, is because we're trying to fight against our own nature or the truth, the reality of the outside world. Right, with your own nature, for example, it can be useful to push yourself to do things that you know you should do. There's a certain amount of that is useful and helpful. On the other hand, too much of that will just make you stressed and unhappy. If you're constantly having to push yourself and use a huge amount of energy to make yourself do something, maybe you need to look at this more. Maybe this thing you're doing is not really, in harmony with your nature. Use another simple physical example of exercise. Let's say you're decided you're gonna swim, and you go and every day you go to the pool and you swim, but it's so hard, and you force yourself and you push yourself, and it's just, every day it's a fight to make yourself go to the pool, and you do this for weeks and weeks, and you just you hate it, and then you get in the water and it's cold, and you're just pushing and pushing. Well, after a while, in the beginning, maybe you need to do that if you've been too lazy. But after a while, if it's still so tough, maybe there's just something that's going against your nature. Maybe swimming is not what you need to do. Maybe walking or hiking or bicycling or weightlifting would be more in line with your nature. Some people, for example, they just, with their body type, with their mentality, some people, especially men, really enjoy weightlifting and more of that kind of hard, big, heavy, intense kind of exercise. And so swimming might be against their nature, and swimming therefore would always be less enjoyable. They would get less or fewer results from it. So instead of fighting that and forcing themselves to swim, the more skillful thing to do, according to the Taoists, would be to look at your own nature deep inside and figure out what fits you best. Yes, you need to exercise, but there's many ways to do it. So you find what fits your nature, and then it all becomes easier. Then, let's say, lifting big heavy weights is better. So this person changes and they go to the gym and they start doing power lifting, right? Trying to lift the maximum amount of weight, and they really love it and it's great, and they start gaining, their strength gets better and better, and they're gaining muscle and they really love it. They're excited and motivated about it. It's hard work, but it actually feels much easier. They don't need to force themselves to do it. They want to go to the gym every day. It's the complete opposite feeling as from swimming was, because now they're going with their own nature. That's a very simple example, but it gives you the idea of looking at your own nature on the inside. And then the same idea on the outside. So many times in life when we don't get good results, The problem is not that we're lazy. Sometimes we are lazy, but often the problem is we choose bad goals that don't really fit our nature. That's one problem. Or another problem is maybe the goal's good, but our method is bad. We're just trying to do it in the wrong way. We're going against reality. We're encouraged to do this so much now in the media and politics is against reality. If you speak the truth, they say it's hate speech. It's not that it's false. They won't say it's false. They just say it's hateful because they hate reality. They hate reality, especially reality they don't agree with. But there are many problems when you try to ignore reality. Especially the reality you don't like or agree with, especially the truths that are hard and difficult. When you ignore those, there are usually bad side effects. There are usually bad effects that come. You might get some success in life, but you're going to have some other kind of pain. This is what the Taoists are saying. That you've got to be open and real and truthful about what really is, and to go with that instead of trying to fight against it, instead of resisting it. Of course, my favorite example of this is Effortless English. Now, is it possible to study and memorize hundreds of grammar rules with a huge amount of effort, a lot of effort to do that? Some people do manage to do it. There are a few. Most don't like it, and most don't do it, but there are a few who will use a huge amount of energy and willpower and effort, and they will memorize hundreds of grammar rules. But they're going against nature. They're going against the natural way of learning English or any language. A few of these people will achieve some success, meaning some of them will manage to speak using correct grammar most of the time. But it takes them such a long time to do that. And there are side effects usually, right? There are bad results that they're not wanting. They may speak with pretty good grammar, but they're constantly stopping and thinking while they speak. So their fluency is terrible because they constantly have to stop and remember different grammar rules. They're constantly thinking about grammar rules all the time. Because of that, their listening's not very good because they're not concentrating on the other person who's speaking. Instead, they're trying to think of grammar rules for the next sentence they want to say. And so they have really terrible fluency, stopping all the time. Many of these people also are very stressed when they speak, easy to get stressed. This is what happens when you go against nature. There's just a natural way of learning languages. How do we know this? Well, we can look at babies everywhere in the world. We can look at small children, even older children, everywhere in the world, every one of them who's normal, who has a normal brain, every one of them learns at least one language effortlessly. Many of them learn more than one language effortlessly. And we can see how they do it. It's not a mystery. It's not a big surprise. Very easy to see how they do it. Well, Effortless English is it's a method designed to help adults follow the same way. Right? To go with nature instead of against it. And that's why with Effortless English, it feels more effortless as you do it. It feels more enjoyable, less stressful as you do it. And at the same time, you get better results. At the same time, it's faster and more effective. So the lesson of the butcher. It's what he's saying. He's like, when you don't go against nature, that actually you get better results faster with less effort. That's what he does, right? When he's cutting, he's using almost no energy at all, no muscle, but he's cutting faster and more easily than the other butchers are. Because he's going with the nature of the meat, going with the nature of the animal he's cutting, instead of trying to fight against it. Join my VIP program and go with nature and learn in this way effortlessly at effortlessenglishclub.com. effortlessenglishclub.com. Join and commit. Stay with it at effortlessenglishclub.com. Connected to this idea of going with nature is the idea of priorities. One of the biggest lies in the media and schools is the lie of equality. You'll hear this word a lot in politics and media. Everywhere it's a popular word now. Equality, equality. It's a super huge lie. There is no equality in nature. None. Equality is only a mathematical idea. That's all. There's only equality in mathematics. 2 plus 2 equals 4. It means they're the same. 2 plus 2 is exactly the same as 4. That is correct, right? Because it follows the rules of math. Why is it correct? Well, because we made those rules. Math is a human creation, and this follows the rules of math. 2 plus 2, 4. They are equal. They are the same. But in real life, in nature, outside of mathematics, nothing is equal. Nothing is of equal value. Everything is different. Most especially people. People love to say equality, equality. Everybody's equal. No, they're not. I mean, that's just the most obvious lie in the world. We all know this. That's insanity to say everybody's equal. Everyone's not equal. We know that. In your own life, everybody's not equal. There are some people you love and care about very, very much. They are much more important to you than strangers, than people you don't know, than you've never met them. That is good, and that is right, and that is true. That's reality. Same in a job situation, in a company. All the employees are not equal, not even close. Some are better. Some are more important. Why? Because they're more valuable to the company. They earn more money for the company. They bring a better benefit to the company. Others are less valuable. That's why they're paid less. Because they're not as good. They're less skillful, less profitable, whatever. Even among your own friends. You probably have some friends. They're not all equal. You probably have, you may have a best friend who is the most important to you. Maybe you have a couple of them. But even then, they're not exactly equal. They're different, right? They have different strengths, different weaknesses, different things you love about them, different things that maybe annoy you. It's all part of life. But there is no equality. Equality is a big, big lie. And if you try to use this idea of equality in your life, it will make you insane. It will make you crazy and miserable and super unhappy, because you will be going against nature. And when you do that, you do not get good results. And you certainly do not get happiness. It doesn't matter if we don't like this truth. A lot of people clearly don't seem to like this idea that there's no equality. They like the idea of equality. They think it should be true, because it sounds really nice and sweet, but it's not true. This is what the Taoists are saying. It doesn't matter if you like it or not. Okay? If you want to have a skillful life, a happy life, if you want to be effective in everything you do, if you want to be helpful to people, you have to go with truth and reality, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Now, part of this is within your own life, because it's the same thing in your own life, in terms of both people in your life, but also situations in your life, areas of your life. They are not equal. And this is, I think, really what distraction is about. One of the key things about distraction is forgetting this, that people get lost and they forget what is most important. They forget that everything's not equally important. Okay, your biology class in college is not as important as your mother or father. They're not equally important. If you think deeply about it, of course you'll realize this. But we get distracted by the everyday. We get distracted by being busy. And we often forget these things. And a lot of people, they forget what is truly most important. And they get distracted by what is, urgent, what is in their face right now, what is demanding attention. Sometimes small things can be very loud, and they can grab our attention. They can seem like a really big thing, but they're not as important as other things. So we're going to talk about this actually in the third habit. The third habit, Stephen Covey's third habit, where he talks about, it's basically called prioritizing, right? Figuring out what's most important or most valuable to you in life, what's second most valuable, what's third most valuable. What are those few things that are very, very valuable and important, and then all the other stuff. They're not equal. It's the same with people. You should really sit down and think about it. Which people in your life are truly the most important for your whole life, right? Think big and long term. Who's less important? Again, people get distracted by this. They'll get so focused on a new girlfriend, for example. A lot of guys do this. I did this when I was young, at least once, where I get so excited and focused on a new girlfriend, and then I'll neglected longer term friends, or even family, right? Because I was so focused on this new girlfriend. But if I'd really thought about it, I'd realize, well, wait, my family is much more important. And my close friends are more important than just some new girlfriend. So prioritizing is very, very, very important. And this is kind of connected to the Taoist idea too, of, again, realizing that in nature, in your life, on the inside and on the outside, equality does not exist. That's fine. One of my favorite quotes from the movie Fight Club is, "Let that which does not matter truly slide." I've mentioned this quote before. I'll probably mention it again in the future because I like it. But to let something slide means to neglect it. It means don't take care of it. It means kind of ignore it or just don't care about it very much. Now earlier, I think last week, beginning of this week, I mentioned about being careful. Don't neglect, right? I said don't neglect people who are important to you. Don't neglect important relationships. That's true. On the other hand, this is kind of, again, Taoist idea. On the other hand, there are plenty of things maybe you should neglect more. We don't think about this. We're taught so much, to train so much in schools and other places that we just try harder, more effort in everything. Well, sometimes actually you need less effort because some things just aren't that important. Some things are less important, and sometimes you just need to neglect some things. You need to let some of the smaller stuff, just neglect it. Let it slide. Let it slide means just let it go. Don't care about it too much. Don't work harder on those smaller things. Don't focus on those smaller things. Don't take care of them. Don't be good at them. Why not? Because they're distracting you from what is truly important. It's just like the butcher. You have to know where to put your knife. Okay, this is the metaphor, the idea. In life, it means you have to know where to put your focus and where not to. Instead of chopping where it's not really that important. I can't answer this question for you, but you really do need to think about this in your life. Which areas, which people, which areas of life are super, super important to you? Absolutely. And you must never forget this. You must remind yourself of this every single day. It's too easy to get distracted by all the little things in life. And even people who are just less important. I can't answer. I can give you my answer. I'll give you some of my answers. Just to give you an idea, my family and what I call my clan, C-L-A-N, which is just my extended family, my closest friends and my extended family, that is super, super important to me. Those people, those are the most important people to me in my life. It's not equal. Everybody's not equal. No, those people are top. So they get first priority. They get most of my attention. They get most of my effort. Health and fitness is a big one. I think it's pretty obvious why. Freedom, independence, learning, character, I put them all together. It's one category. Basically character, which we've been talking about this week. Your soul, right? The deepest part of you. And that's where your true freedom is. Faith, God, purpose. That's another category. Very, very important for me. And all of that together, when I focus on those things, put most of my energy, we could use the 80-20 idea, but 80%, I'd say probably for me, even more than that, I put on those 4 areas of life. It leads to much greater long-term happiness, goodness, and meaning in my life. Everything's not equal. Those things are far more important. Other people are less important to me. Strangers are much less important to me. Now you're in that list. My students, my Effortless English family is very important to me too. But other people, just random people, I don't know. I don't really care about them very much, honestly. I don't wish any harm to them, but I just don't care. And they can live their life, live and let live is my attitude towards most people. I don't get too upset about strangers and their opinions, strangers and their problems. It's not equal. So, another way to say this is I let everything else slide. I let everything else slide. Those are the 4 big areas of my life. Family, clan. As part of that freedom, independence, learning, character, Effortless English is in there also for me. That's one of the categories for me. Health and fitness, faith, God, purpose, Dharma. I focus all my energies there, and most other things I let slide means I'm very relaxed about other stuff. Okay? There's a lot of other things I can be pretty lazy about, actually. I can be lazy about most other things in my life. I will neglect other things. I started doing this way back in college when I was in grad school. I finally realized, right in the middle of grad school, I had this kind of awakening, and I realized who were the most important people in my life, what was most important, what kind of life direction did I want. And I realized suddenly, fuck school. Sorry to use rude language, but I just realized this is not that important to me. These stupid classes and this nonsense. I almost quit. But then I very rationally, kind of with no emotion, just looked at the numbers, and I realized, well, I'll go ahead, I'll get my degree, I'll finish, because I can make more money with the degree than without it. It's a decent investment in my case, in that situation. So I did it, but man, my whole attitude about college changed completely. I started to skip classes a lot. If I had a choice, to go spend time with my closest friends or family or class, I would easily and always skip the class. Always would choose my family or my friends. I often would skip class and just go for a run or a walk or something. I just realized then this is not that important to me. I just got to pass. I don't have to do very well. I actually did well still, but it changed my priorities completely. This is a big part about being proactive too. You decide this. The outside world's constantly, outside world meaning outside people really, and outside organizations, including media and all of that, they're constantly trying to tell you what's important and get your attention and demand your time. But you have got to decide this. You've got to make that decision yourself. And it should only be, it should be close to my list, 3 to 5 categories, areas of your life as your top priorities, as the most important things. Most important meaning they bring you the most happiness long term. They will give you the best life, a good life, good in terms of happy, also good meaning moral, both meanings of the word. Focus your energies there on those things. The rest of the stuff, don't worry about it, man. Just don't worry about it. It's kind of like when I used to be, I was a runner, and the first few years when I was a runner, I got very focused on improving my time, my running times, running faster in these races. And then finally I woke up, I realized, why do I care about this? This isn't important at all. I'm not a professional runner, so what does it matter? It doesn't. I'm just doing this for fun and for some health benefits. I can run slowly and still get the health benefits, and I can enjoy it. So it's kind of crazy for me to get worried about the time. And I just stopped caring about my times after that. Just realized, I'm just going to let this slide. It's not important at all. So beginning with the end in mind, I'm going to tie it back now. I'm going to connect it back to this chapter 2 that we're working on this weekend in the book. Getting that big picture, the long-term picture of your life. It's you got to decide both sides of this. Number 1, identify what is important to you in your life. What's most important? I would include one category would be people. Who are the people who are most important? For most people, that's going to be family and maybe a few very close friends, if you're lucky. Family, closest friends. I'd guess probably physical, something, your health, basic health, pretty important for most people. Faith, God, religion, spiritual practice, that category. Your character, your freedom, that might include financial freedom, but, in a very general way. It's also, kind of your mental discipline. That can all be one big category. You might have another one or something. I don't know, but you have to think about it. So that's one part. That's part one. What's most important? Your highest priorities. Nothing's equal, so you have to choose. And then part two of this, the other side that a lot of people don't think about, because we're kind of trained we got to work hard at everything. But the other half is what's not important, or what's much less important to you. That's probably a much longer list. That can be a very long list. There's a famous idiom in English. It says, if something is worth doing, it's worth doing well. If something is worth doing, it's worth doing well. Kind of an old idiom. The idea is, if you're going to do something, you should do a good job. You should always do a good job. If you're going to be a runner, then you should work hard so that you're a very good runner. If you're going to lift weights, you should work hard so that you're good at lifting weights. If you're going to, whatever, it doesn't matter. Anything in life, you should try to be excellent. Well, this is bullshit. I don't like it. I think it's wrong. I think it's kind of a stupid idiom. Because it's very much this idea of equality, that everything in life is equal, right? This is what that idiom is saying, that all activities are equally important. Well, they're not. I think it's stupid. Some things just aren't that important. So some things you just do for fun. I'd say most things. It's absolutely stupid and crazy to think that you should put the same effort, the same energy into your marriage as into your hobby. That's crazy. Your marriage, I hope, is far more important. So I'm very much against that idiom, and very much more of a Taoist myself. I think it's a much it's a truer, more truthful, more intelligent, more wise way to approach life. And so what I'd like you to do today then, it's very easy. Most of us quite easily can focus on what is important. I'd like you to think and look at your life and look at all the different things in your life and think, what's actually not that important? What are some things that I do? What are some things I focus on? What are some things I get stressed about or spend a lot of time doing or get distracted by? What are some things that take my energy and effort, but actually they're not important. They're not that important. And I should just be lazy about them. You don't have to stop doing them, but just be more lazy about them. Let them slide. This is kind of fun, actually. It's kind of fun in life to say, you know what? I'm not going to worry about this anymore. I'm just not going to worry about it. Some people, it's your job. Believe me, I've had many jobs. I've had many jobs in my past before Effortless English that I just let them slide, I needed the money, so I still went to work just to get the paycheck, but I realized I don't care about this job. It's not that important. It's certainly not as important as family or friends or even travel for me. So I would just go, I would do my job, I'd go to work on time, but I was just very relaxed about it. I just didn't care too much about it. I'll come, do what I need to do, and then leave. I would just let it slide, and it eliminated so much stress. Because of that, it was very easy for me to leave jobs that I didn't like. I'd go, and if I felt that the job, like if the boss was really bad, or if the job was very unpleasant, if I felt the job was taking too much time away from my friends, from my family, from, my health and exercise, from travel, from things that were important to me, I just quit. Very quickly. I had many jobs that I quit after just 2 or 3 months. That happened several times, many times. I just didn't care. Because I realized, my career is not that important to me. Right? Having some great resume, I don't care. It's not important. It's not on my list of super important things. I need money, but other than that, I just don't care. And when I realized that and I started to let it slide, my life became so much more relaxed. I just didn't stress about it anymore. I became much happier. Much happier. And surprise, surprise, I finally started my own business and did become financially successful. And I do love doing this. Effortless English. Love it. Love you. Often when you do let things slide, you can kind of just relax, and then you will find a path, a way that is much easier for you. Instead of trying to force things that aren't important. When you just relax and let it go, often you just end up, it just feels effortless. Effortless English happened that way with me. Much easier than those crappy jobs, those bad jobs. So look at your life and are there things you're stressed about that really are not so important? They're not a top priority. Are there things taking too much of your time, too much of your energy that really are not that important to you? I'm sure there are. Most people have them. All you've got to do, you don't need to quit, you don't need to do anything. Just change your attitude about it. Just let that stuff slide. Just relax and whatever. And focus your energies on those few areas that are most important to you. And you're going to be much more like that butcher, that Taoist butcher. You'll become a master, an effortless master. You can do that with English at effortlessenglishclub.com. Join my VIP program. Commit at effortlessenglishclub.com. Go now to effortlessenglishclub.com.